It had been almost 10 years since I gave a thought to my old friend Kirby, until about a month ago when I got a handwritten letter in the mail. It opened with, "Dear cocksucker, I hope you're still sucking cock." Right after I graduated high school, I wanted to prove that I could make it in the real world as an avant-garde hip-hop artist. So I got a job at a small pub in Bonnie Doon as a line cook. Kirby worked the broiler. He taught me how to cook the perfect steak, garnish a plate, and do the mushrooms that they do on the fancy cruise ships. He wasn't the kitchen manager. In fact, I had never cooked a day in my life, and I think I had seniority over him. Kirby was a complex man. Like how in Mandarin, you can say the same word with different intonations and it carries completely different meanings. Kirby could do that with the word cocksucker. It could be a violent outburst when food sat in the window for too long, or a tender show of affection when he was on the phone with his sick mother who he lived with and cared for. Yes, he would call her a cocksucker too. Kirby's greatest joy, besides dreaming of cooking on a cruise ship, was cleaning the kitchen. He had a particular fondness for bleach, and each night he would create a concoction of chemicals in the mop bucket, searching for that perfect recipe. One night, after the bar had closed, a drunk waitress stumbled into our tiny kitchen. Kirby was preparing a duck confit recipe that he had lifted from the Celebrity Equinox cruise ship. She tossed a handful of frozen chicken fingers into the fryer, splashing Kirby's hand with hot oil and getting it in the pan he was cooking with. Cocksucker! It wasn't the burn on his hand that upset him. He had plenty of those. It was the duck. He made a special trip to the farmer's market for that duck, and he was preparing it just for us. The server giggled while Kirby just stared at her, his face bubbling and contorting like ash from the Evil Dead chainsawing off his own arm. She did not fully understand the severity of her transgression and only said, "Can you bring them out when they're ready?" Kirby flipped the pan off the range, and the two breasts landed behind the stove. They're probably there to this day. He stormed off the line to the dish pit where he began mixing chemicals into the mop bucket. This would be his greatest broth yet. Half a gallon of bleach, 3 squeezes of dish soap, a dozen shakes of Javex, 4 cups of hot water. Then came the secret ingredient, the commercial-grade descaler. He unscrewed the cap, held the jug to his nose like it was an expensive wine, and then turned it upside down over the mop bucket. Now, what I didn't know at the time was that the primary chemical in a descaling agent is hydrochloric acid. This means that when you mix it with bleach, you get chlorine gas, a weapon that was invented in 1914 by Fritz Haber to use against the French in the First World War. Fritz's wife committed suicide shortly thereafter in protest of his work. I saw the bubbles spill over the side of the mop bucket, and it became difficult to breathe. If a microphone feedback had a smell, it would be filling my nostrils. And I said, "What did you do?" He looked at me, standing over the bucket. A vein bulged at his temple, disappeared through the muscle in his cheekbone, and then resurfaced above his jaw. He was smiling. I ran out of the kitchen, eyes watering and coughing, waving my arms at the servers who were cashing out at the bar. They ignored me completely. So I left the building, and seconds later, 6 waitresses burst through the front doors, crying and digging at their eyes, confused and angry like a group of toddlers whose hamster stopped moving after they played with it for too long. I never saw Kirby again, but they didn't find a body, so I figured he was okay. But then I got the letter. There wasn't much else to it. It just said, "Mom died, so I thought I should get out of town. I don't think I ever had a better friend than you and figured I should tell someone, Kirby. So I grabbed the envelope and looked at the return address, and it said 123 middle of the fucking Ocean Drive, area code COKSKR.